hanging out at McDonald's. There's a rough crowd out there. There is some sort of a crowd out there.
Not sure what kind.
So we're on to book 2. From Jacob to Israel, chapter 1, book 2. Book 2, chapter 1. And it looks like there are 13 chapters. So here's chapter 1. Whew, always yawning. My father still visited often. He brought me a beautiful piece of ash that was hand carved into an elegant and unobtrusive walking stick. I loved the smooth feel of it in my palm. I was growing discontent with the wheelchair, and it encouraged my transition back into the world of walking. In just 2 short weeks, I was lumbering around again, zombie-esque, with my father's hand to keep me steady. He was happy to help his own baby bird get back on his feet. The physical therapists helped when my father was away spending time with his wife. I found them less than eager to help me walk again. I suppose I was less work for them in bed, heavily sedated. I wanted to walk the paths behind my house again, see the shallowly dug graves of my 2 white soulmates, though I knew the bodies had been moved, and meditate over the field that saved me and brought me the light of my new life. But I had no way to tell my father about my wishes. I knew what I must do. I must speak my first words. I must begin life again anew. The dawn could not be ushered in if I remained mute. I don't know what the dawn was then. I only faintly felt it looming toward the horizon with some deep part of me, some rarely accessed part of my brain. I didn't understand what my role was then, but these were the weeks of transformation. In the weeks that followed, I retrained my tongue to once again sing the song of language. The words were still in my brain, I just found it incredibly difficult to squeeze them out. I had the bricks, I just couldn't conceive of how to build the wall. In the deep cold of night, when I was surrounded by my secret nightmare creatures, I would attempt to speak. The words came out strange. Biz, Ra, Om, Tau, May. I could not snare them, control them, articulate. I wondered if this was what religious types called speaking in tongues. I concentrated. I realized then that words were like magical components, and the speaker is like an alchemist who must train himself in all of the combinations and recipes that have success and serve some purpose. A clever wordsmith can literally manifest thought into reality. That is magic in its most primal form. I must take up my wand. Progress came, slowly but surely. I felt like a child. I felt mentally disabled. How could this be? I felt sure that at one time I had been smart. Was this too a delusion? As I talked to the shadows in my small cell, the words came back to me. I thought aloud, and this eased the process. I had decided I would remain a mute to the world until I could once again speak at full capacity. Did I dream my whole previous lifetime? My first true sentence in almost 5 years. I began to think that the 7 thunders had never been uttered. Perhaps the week before my 15th birthday was an elaborate fabrication, a false memory inserted into my subconscious. By whom or what, I didn't know, but they rode down on the light. The shadowy forms seemed to hear my thoughts, and they delighted in my lack of faith. They undulated in joy, as if shaking in silent laughter. They were devious beings. Even if they were in fact part of my neurosis, they were the vilest part of me. This was all I could be certain of. 2 weeks before my 20th birthday, I had regained my entire vocabulary and could articulate myself well enough to finally speak to my father again. I would tell him that I was ready to go home. I would not, however, tell him that shortly after that, I would leave him forever. I had no choice. My new life had to be separate from the old. A dead tree doesn't grow good fruit. The tree of life will bear the infinite light of everlasting life. An Indian summer had set in when my father arrived. Winter wouldn't be long now. September was always a blue month for me. Everyone's trying to destroy my car. But it would soon be over. The 22nd day of that sour month was my birthday. But he said sorry. He opened his door directly into my car. But he said sorry. I've had passengers that have opened my door into poles, spilled coffee in the side cup holders, dribbled barf down the door jamb, all these things. None of them said sorry. No monetary compensation offered. I think I said sorry. That's all I need. I stood by my metal bed. Its sheets stunk with bleach. I clenched my cane tightly with one hand and held my hospital gown closed with the other. I had still not regained full control of my nervous bladder since the attack, and was confined to this silly garment by the orderlies, who had grown tired of washing my soiled clothing. This was how I always looked when my father visited, but today I was self-conscious. Today, I would plead my sanity. I found it difficult to appear sane, pacing around in a white room with bars on the windows, wearing an open-backed gown. The lock clicked open, and I heard the bar slide back. My father entered, and a tall black man in white shut the door behind him. "Hello, son. Your birthday is in a week or so, 6 days away." My father no longer smiled when he saw me. He diverted his eyes, making sure not to catch my penetrating gaze. I wasn't sure if he was disappointed in me, or just felt responsible for my condition. Thupton would still be alive if my father hadn't suggested he spend the night. He thought that Thupton being there would quell the beast named Riley. Some fires can't be squelched. My father walked over to me and hugged me tightly. Lightly. Different meaning. "Hello, Joseph." These were the first words I had spoken to anyone in years. My father recoiled from me like I had stabbed him in the gut. What? Maybe he thought his ears were playing tricks on him. He backed up a few paces and covered his mouth with his hands. His eyes were wide, surprised, and happy. I hobbled closer to him, leaning on my cane and stroking my beard with my free hand. I could smell his cologne. "I'm ready to go home. I've become a man in here. I'm ready to leave," I said weakly. The sentence came off my lips like I had never stopped talking. My father didn't respond. He just covered his face and sighed deeply. I'm ready to get back to living again. I'm sorry it took so long. Don't be sorry, Jacob. How? When? Did I start talking? Yes. My father was struggling to speak. I found this ironic. I have been practicing late at night when I'm all alone. I wanted to surprise you before my birthday. I want to walk outside again. I want to go to the field. I want to be okay. I'm back to normal. That was a little white lie. I would never be normal again. I glowed in the spirit and saw with my mind's eye. Can you write again, too? They say you just keep drawing. I hadn't considered that. I hadn't even tried. Every time I sat down to a page, my mind just spat out some symmetrical design. I don't know, I answered. I haven't really tried to. I've become comfortable with the drawings. Writing could help you get some of your thoughts and feelings sorted out. You should try, when we get home, of course. Well, my father paused. We were remodeling what was going to be your bedroom into a nursery for when your baby brother arrives. Oh. No, son, it's not like that. We just didn't know how much longer you would be in here. He shrugged. His words stung. I guess he thought that I had gone off the deep end for good. To me, my condition seemed like a cocoon. I guess my father thought it was more like a coffin. He thought I was gone for good. I could tell by his eyes. I could almost read his mind. Well, where can I stay? My voice was retreating. I cleared my throat. The baby can stay in our room until you decide what you want to do. We can afford to add on a third bedroom. In the meantime, you'll have a bright blue and yellow bedroom. We'll move all the baby stuff into our room. I doubt a 20-year-old man would want a big furry bunny and a changing table in his private area. I don't care where I stay, as long as I get to wear some jeans and I can open my window without an alarm sounding. My father and I both smiled and shared another hug, this time tighter, more loving. Like I had come home from a long journey. The prodigal son. Things would mend between me and my father with time, but most good things must come to an end. And that is the tragedy of it all. Let's get you out of here. Andrea will be so happy to see what I'm bringing home with me. All she was expecting was a pint of Ben & Jerry's and a jar of dill pickles. That reminds me, we have to stop by the store on the way home. We gathered my things and signed all the necessary forms and waivers to free me from the nut house. I officially returned to the world of the sane. Before I knew it, I was in Joseph's work truck, tucking my hospital gown between my legs and holding onto a towering pile of notebooks, wrapped in a sheet. I was happy to be going home. My mourning period had been therapeutic. My father listened to Rush Limbaugh on the EIB network on the way home. He tried to catch me up on politics, something I cared little about. He said he was going to vote for a conservative governor from Texas in the upcoming presidential election. The year 2000 looked favorable for the Reds. I just looked out the window with a smile. The trees were sagging with the heavy dew of Indian summer. I missed nature. Only a tiny sliver of it had been visible from my high-security room. I don't know much about politics. Well, you will learn. I doubt it, I said with a yawn. My father put his hand on my shoulder. You look old with that beard. I can't even grow one that full. You know that? They wouldn't let me have razors. We were both quiet after that. We stopped off at the store to pick up Andrea's requests. I stayed in the car. I was hardly dressed to be in public. I was picking at the pesky hospital bracelet that clung like a parasite to my arm when my father came out of the Piggly Wiggly. He was carrying a few sacks. When he opened the car door, I could see that one of the bags contained a few notebooks. I wanted to get you something to work on tonight. I smiled. My whole life is in this sheet. I hugged my collection of college-ruled and gridded journal entries, pieces of shorthand insanity from my adolescence, and volumes of drawings from my years in the psychiatric ward. A complete lunatic's Bible. We pulled up into my father's driveway. Andrea was sitting on the front porch in a rocking chair. She held her big round belly with both hands and rocked back and forth on her swollen ankles. She looked lovely, her white dress blowing in the cool breeze, the wind chimes singing to her softly like fairies. When she saw me, her face lit up with excitement and curiosity. She didn't get up. I could hardly blame her. It felt rude, but I didn't get out of my father's truck. I was red-faced. The first time I would speak to Andrea in years, I would be in a loose-fitting hospital gown. Can you get me some jeans before I go inside? I asked softly. My father turned and looked at me blankly, obviously lost in the moment. Oh, sure, son. I'll be right back. My father got out of the truck with the groceries and walked over to Andrea and talked to her briefly. She nodded and my father disappeared into the house, leaving the pickles with Andrea. He came out a minute or two later with a pair of jeans and a shirt. He handed them to me through the window and I slipped them on. I got out of the car wearing a pair of Joseph's jeans and planted my cane firmly on the ground to catch my balance. He had the sheet full of notebooks thrown over one shoulder and my arm in his other elbow. I could tell that he was a much stronger man than he used to be. I walked over to Andrea with my father's help. Jacob, darlin', I love your beard. It makes you look like Shakespeare, Andrea said as I hugged her tightly. I think he looks like John the Baptist, my father rebuffed. It's good to be home, I said flatly. My planned departure had already begun to hang on my thoughts, and I hadn't even put down my bags. My flight would be soon. I was a hatched eaglet. I'll spend a few weeks here, max, I thought. We went inside and Andrea led me into the living room. It was filled with brand new furniture that I had never seen before. It felt foreign to me, but that was fine. It was all temporary. Over a glass of sweet iced tea, my father, Andrea, and I briefly caught up. I spoke very little and answered what few questions they asked with quick, non-descriptive answers. As we talked, my eyes darted around the room. The dark figures had followed me home from the crazy house. They wouldn't be as easy to escape as the hospital had been. The shadows were part of me now. They seemed to be exploring their new territory. I saw perhaps 6 of them. I couldn't really tell with all of their secret comings and goings, And of course, there was the fact that they all looked exactly alike, aside from slight variations in size. My father and Andrea noticed my sporadic darting glances. "What do you see, son?" my father asked me. "What? What do you see?" he asked, concerned. "Oh, it's nothing, really." I couldn't let them think I was insane. "I'm just getting used to this new setup," I added. "I love the new couches." I stroked the cool leather of the cushion. I could hide it. The workings of this social world were coming back to me, bit by bit. "Yeah? I love that leather recliner. It's great for the ball games." My father laughed. Oh my God. He pulled it off. He actually pulled it off. Wow. But I got 2 more sorries. Wow. How do you manage that? Like, that's some type of brain. Stunning. Wow. Okay. Time went by slowly. I felt awkward. We ate a meal and oh my God. How do I attract these people? We ate a meal and Andrea stuffed her face. Then we I don't know if I can I don't know if I can continue this without laughing. My poor car. Andrea let me put my hand on her belly. I felt my baby brother kick. That made me solemn. I would leave before I ever get a chance to see him. "Life is a fragile thing," I said when I felt him kick. I knew this firsthand. I'm getting sleepy, guys. I think I'm going to take the first unsupervised shower of my new life and then get some writing done. I can't. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to continue. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to work, and well, let's see what kind of scars my car has. You guys want to see? You want to see what happened to my poor baby car? Ah! What happened? Beautiful McDonald's. Maybe nothing. Ah, right here. See, he left some of his. He left some paint. Well, that's not so bad. He left some paint and a sorry, so he gets a pass for being. I'm not gonna call him names. He deserves it though. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was pretty exciting, and hope everybody's doing well. Peace.